The China phenomenon, it is getting importance and momentum day by day with the more emerging, rather, I would say, with the more active role of China regionally as well as on global platform. So many things, those are connected with the rise of China and with the China's interaction with other countries on bilateral level as well as with the major global powers. So the today's book, that is the China's Globalization and the New World Order, I think that most of the topics related to this title have been covered by different authors in the book. Most of them, they are Pakistanis, and some of them, they are also the international authors. If we talk about the book, especially how it is on the topic of China, so few things they come in mind where it's necessary to have some discussion on it. One, that whether China, it is a rival to the international order, world order, to the international system or not. What we see, if we look into the China's history, I mean the communist China since 1949, when it became communist. After that, that was the era of the revolution export when there was the Mao era. So it was totally a different China till 1976 until 1978 when Deng Xiaoping opened China to the world, and then reforms agenda and the four modernization program and China's active engagement with the world, it started. And now what we see China in the current phase, it is the result of those reforms, and that socialism with Chinese characteristic agenda by the Deng Xiaoping, the second paramount leader of China, what we are experiencing it today. So about the international system, in the Mao era, we can say that it was challenging the system, that China was not integrating in the system. But on the other hand, the Western powers, the United States and its allies, the capitalist countries, they were not willing to accommodate China into its own orbit. The biggest question that time, the People's Republic of China's seat in the United Nations, the Vietnam War and so many others. But after that, when it was allowed that People's Republic of China had to represent the Chinese nation in the United Nations, and Taiwan had to be expelled from United Nations. So I think that was the point where interaction started between China and the Western world. But now, after the China's, the signing of MTCR, Missile Technology Control Regime, so many other agreements, and especially the joining World Trade Organization, China is integrated with the world, but still there are different views in the West how they look into China, where it has been also noticed by the authors in this book as well, that one is China's view, but the other that is the how China is seen in the world, especially from the Western perspective. So to talk about this, then we have to go a little bit into, go back into history. Actually, there are two orders. There have been two orders in the world. One, what we are following now, or what we are practicing it nowadays, that is the Eurocentric world, right? The European originated world system, international system, right? Another, that is the anarchic world, right? So every rising power over there in Europe, if we read the European history, right? So every rising power, that was the threatening power. whether that was Germany or Italy or maybe Great Britain, or before that maybe Spain or whatever, and they became colonial powers. But on the other hand, China's experience in story that is different. In East Asia, there had been hierarchical order, and hierarchical order, it had some norms and values where China was a kind of it acted as a patron, and it gave patronage to the neighboring states. So since the reforms agenda of Deng Xiaoping, China has been following that hierarchical order. That's why the scholars who takes the Chinese view, they don't consider China as a rival, right, to the Western powers, or as a threat to the, what we can say, to the world order or to the world peace, but rather they take it as very much beneficial and very much, how to say, a non-harm position, right, to the world. The suzerainty concept, we know about that, half China provided it to the East Asian countries in the history. So that hierarchical order still China is following. That's why wherever China goes, it says, when it signs agreements with other countries, it says win-win situation. It says friendship. It says partnership. China doesn't talk about alliances. Yes, People's Republic of China had a security alliance with the Soviet Union, but that was for a short period of time, and because of some differences, ideological and some others, then it was eroded, right? It was then finished at the end of 1950s. After that, China had never done any security alliance. What we can say, these are alignments, or these are strategic partnerships, or these are the treaty or agreements of friendship. So one view is this. This is why the neighboring countries, they are accepting China. Look to the Japan or South Korea, especially these countries, if they had some differences in history or maybe nowadays with China, but still they have very good trade relationship, right? And they are not challenging China in a way that it has to be fall down, right? So this is the thing, how they have learned it from their ancient hierarchical order under the umbrella of the Chinese patronage. So if now China is rising and it is growing, they are not feeling any threat from the China's rise, but rather they are accommodating it. That's the point when China also started the BRI, before it was called OBOR, but now Built-in Road Initiative, right, the 6 corridors, and it is also passing through the East Asia, especially if we talk about the Indo-China corridor, the China, Laos, Vietnam, and the Cambodia corridor. Another thing that the everywhere China, if it has access, it doesn't talk about the in an offensive way, but rather it talks about stability, peace, and friendship. So the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence, China still following what it had signed before with India in 1954 about the non-intervention in internal affairs, about the non-aggression, about mutual respect, equality, and same the principle of peaceful coexistence. So these 5 principles are still the we can say the cornerstone of the Chinese China's foreign policy. We know about the Washington Consensus, right? The world order, or the post-war, the World War II system, how it was created, the World Bank, IMF, the United Nations, right? And even the WTO, all these are the, we can say, the offshoots of that Bretton Woods system. But on the other hand, now we also have the emerging Beijing Consensus, right? That a new form of governance, a new form of development, and also the infrastructural expansion that is being taking place under the leadership of China. So that what we can say, it may be termed as the Beijing Consensus, that the regional countries, the neighboring countries, they are not having any kind of fear from the China's expansion, from the China's development, and from the China's rise. Another thing, they also have in their mind the China's history of that hierarchical order, that yes, the China's development or the China's rise, it will equally benefit other countries of the world, especially the China's neighboring and the regional countries. The author has also discussed about the state-level, state-led development, right? So an interesting one, the China's economy, what it is today, it is not like we call it 100% or totally communist, or the state-controlled or the socialist economy, but there is something from the capitalism, but the author called it as the state-led development, that state is mainly responsible. But on the other hand, in the liberalism or in the capitalist liberalism in the Western world, right, state has not too much connection with the economy or economic relationship, and with each passing day, this multinational corporation phenomenon or the more liberalism, right, in economy that is expanding, and the state control that is what we can say that is eroding. But on the other hand, China has also, it has its own kind of development that the author, Dr. Najmuddin, called it as the state level development. If we conclude the China's globalization and the New World Order, it is like that China is not directly hitting the international system, but rather it is integrating, and it has been integrated too much with the international system, but it has to bring some kinds of reforms, right? That trade or development, it should not be treated as a zero-sum game, but rather to be treated as non-zero-sum game and win-win situation. There is also discussion about the unipolarity and the multipolar world, multipolarity. Well, China doesn't consider itself as a superpower, or from the Chinese perspective, it is not aspiring for the superpower status. Well, it will be decided by the future that China is going towards that or not, right? But at least we can say, especially under in the last 12 or 13 years, when the current president of China, Xi Jinping, he came to power. Now, before him, we have seen China as an economic expansionist, right, in positive terms. But after coming into power of Xi Jinping, now China is militarily is also very much active in defense expenditure, and also by signing various agreements, and also politically, right, its role in Afghanistan. We know the inviting of Taliban to Beijing in the Moscow conferences, the China's role, and even today to bring Pakistan and Afghanistan closer to one another. And there have been trilateral conferences in Beijing, Kabul, and also in Islamabad by Wang Yi, and before Salahuddin Rabbani, the Afghan foreign minister, and here Shami Mut Qureshi, that time now Ishaq Dar is the Pakistan's foreign minister. So, of course, for that, China has its own interest as well, the BRI, the CPEC, the INEC Copper Project, so many others. If we look to the China's role in the mediation between the Saudi Arabia and Iran, that role or its role in Gaza, so all these things manifest that China is now politically is also very much active, and if China has reached to almost every corner of the world economically, but now China also tries to have its political say in the world affairs.